to Road Gang Radio with Jimmy Mack, Lindsay Lawler.
Give me a minute, y'all. I'm coming.
And you. Because if you're listening, you're in the gang. Go for it, Madison with a T.
I'm going for it, Claire Marie. You are listening to Road Gang Radio, live from the Fastport Studios in New Orleans. I'm with your host, Jimmy Mack, and our in-guest studio, Mr. Patrick.
Mr. Patrick McManus is here, by the way. A fellow Irishman. Always good to have a fellow Irishman. And by the way, I am Irish as there is no tomorrow. I mean, I come from both sides of my family. Arrived from both of them arrived at the port of New Orleans. One in 1847, the other one in 1888, and have been no place else. And I mean, we've been all over the world. The family has, but that's the initial point. County Cork and County Mayo are the places that we come from. Patrick joins us this morning. He is the Aerospace and Defense Assistant Program Manager of NextOp Vets, and comes with the imprimatur of our good friend Brad Bentley. Hey, Patrick. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing today?
I am fine, and my friends call me Jimmy or Jim, so we'll knock that sir stuff off. I know what you used to do for a living, so I appreciate that. Let's kind of just dig in here, because you did 20 in the Air Force, correct?
That's right, Jim.
So let's talk about that as well, too. Talk about the decision to serve, and then talk about the 20 years you spent in there.
Sure. So I grew up in Terrytown, and on the West Bank, and so I joined my senior year. I was in the late entry program right before the Gulf War, and then I went to basic training in August of '91. So I spent 20 years. I retired in 2011, and been all over. Enjoyed it. And it was time to retire, and I'm proud that I got to serve, and I'm proud that I got to help other people, other veterans right now.
This by the way, for you all listening, this is real New Orleans nonsense. I'm going to ask him right now. Where'd you go to high school?
West Jeff.
Okay, so you're a West Jeff guy. I'm a Jesuit guy. It's funny because Dave Nemo actually is Shaw guy. That's where he went. He went to Shaw, so he's a West Bank. He's a wank, as some people, as he likes to say. I don't assign that nomenclature. That's one that he gives himself. He's a wank guy. And New Orleans was your home up until the moment you left and joined the Air Force. I got that correct?
Yeah.
And you grew up over on the West Bank. What part of Terrytown is where you came from? I like that area, by the way. Dave and Cheryl came really close, I think, to living pretty much out there. Anybody that knows this area knows Terrytown. I used to do a lot of HVAC work out there, a lot of home restoration and weatherization. The urge to kind of join, were you... Air Force is an odd bird in the sense that people, like I said, people will end up in the Army or the Marines because they're kind of casting about. The Air Force is a little different. Talk about that decision specifically. That's a decision, because the Air Force has different things that make it attractive. It isn't an escape hatch for people. I'm not picking on our Army friends or our Marine friends, but it's like sometimes people go because, hey, I don't know what the hell they're going to do with themselves.
Well, my dad was in the Army, Vietnam era. And my grandfather was in the Army Air Corps. My mom's dad was in the Army Air Corps in the Air Force. And so when I was looking at joining the service, my mom said, don't join the Army or the Marines. So I joined the Air Force.
It's funny. My mom's dad, my grandfather, was actually in the Army Air Corps. That's before there was an Air Force. That's what he did as well too. And my dad was a Vietnam era veteran in the Army as well. So I have a great deal of affection for that. Okay, so you come out, you've done your 20, which means you have an immense set of skills. I was kind of curious, and you'll get why I'm asking this. Did you feel like at the time you came out that you were uniquely kind of qualified to enter into the American workforce?
No. My plan when I
and you get why I'm asking that now.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
So when I retired, I did not have a plan as I should have. The military through mandated by the Department of Defense, there's a program called TAP, which is Transition Assistance Program, and I went through that. But it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. And so when I retired, I actually put in for retirement when I was in Afghanistan. I got home, I had 2 weeks off, 2 weeks of work, and then I was on terminal leave, which is terminal leave, for people who don't know, is the amount of leave you accumulated that you have not used at the end of your contract or when you retire. And then I was in the job market. So it was that's where I kind of work now, is that area where I help people find their next career. Because, I've 20 years of working in the military, 20 years of, speaking military, using acronyms, using military time, right.
Calling people sir who are if maybe you're equal, probably you're lesser, that kind of thing. Yeah,
that's the way my mama brought me up. So but that was kind of that's just kind of where from that I would say, or I was a little bit lost. That's where I kind of draw from when I'm working with veterans to help them find jobs.
Yeah, and that's why. And I said, give you guys full disclosure. The moment I asked the question, Patrick started nodding his head because he knew where I was going with that. If you had known what you know now, you would have had a much easier transition from military into civilian life. Correct?
Oh, definitely.
But that's the thing. That becomes the purpose, passion, calling, doesn't it? That you have an understanding of it, having been through that. You become one of the guys who actually puts, the hose, instead of having just this wild sort of hose. You're the one that puts the end on it and shows people how to control what's coming out of it.
Yes,
that in many ways is what you do. Okay, so let's talk about that transition though. So you had a little leave time. You get a job. Tell us about your first job that you get, and then we'll talk about the transition from that into where you are now.
Well, I retired out of Colorado Springs. I was looking for a job. I was offered a job back home as a project manager. I was building diving equipment. There we had some big projects, and I was able to hire a bunch of veterans, which I found were really all different services. With some Navy guys, some Army guys, some Air Force guys, different services, but we all kind of spoke the same language and all kind of melded in that team really quick, which I think is important in any organization. I worked there for 6 years as a project manager. I left that job. I was unemployed about 4 months. Kind of lost. Applying for jobs randomly, and through the New Orleans VFW Post 8973, I met a guy named Ben who was the regional expansion manager for NextOp, and he kind of was like, "Hey, we can help you out." And so before I started working for NextOp, I was actually a candidate looking for a job. Once I started working with NextOp, he kind of opened my eyes on the things I should be doing, the little tweaks I need to be doing, like actually tailoring my resume for every job, actually do a little bit of networking, actually practice my interview skills, the things that I thought that, I was in the military, I was in the Air Force, I could do anything. I had a job, I worked for a job for 6 years, but I had to get retrained on some things.
So it's the soft skill stuff.
Yes, a lot of soft skills on the coaching side.
Yeah, and it's interesting in regards to the soft skills because, like I said, you make such a good point. That is an excellent point. You're a person, as you said, I was raised by my mama to say, sir, no, sir, please, thank you, all that stuff. A lot of people often, I think you get where I'm coming from here, too. A lot of people have great, what I call interpersonal soft skills, meaning they know how to shake somebody's hand, they know how to look somebody in the eye, they know how to actually create a non-toxic work environment. They don't know, though, as you point out, to go down to the bottom of their resume, since they're changing the application, and bump up the fact that they're bilingual up to the top of their resume when they're applying for a job that demands them to be bilingual. They don't know that each job you have to kind of read the website, read the application, and then tweak your resume, not lie, but move the stuff on your resume to highlight it, that you're turning it almost into kind of it's almost like you were writing a proposal paper for you, where it's like, I'm proposing that I work for this company, and here's the skills that I want to highlight about that. So it brings me to my next question. When you're onboarding people, is there a process of where to begin? Because the other problem I have to walk into when I talk to vets is, you did 20 years. How old were you when you came out?
I'm 52 now, so 39, I believe.
You're 39 years old. By the way, that is the common, I call it the 39, 40, 41, I'm an old man attitude, because I've been in for 20 years. How do you break the news to these men and women? You're young and you got your whole life ahead of you. And that is something I find that many a veteran feels like, well, I have no future. My future is already past. And a lot of them don't understand that they are young people, particularly in this economy, and they're coming out and doing the whole thing. So how do you onboard somebody? So I'm Joe Schmo. I did 20 years in the military. I'm now 41 years old. How do you tell me how to go about the process of getting a job?
Yeah, so they can be in. So for NextOp, you have to be. You register with NextOpVets.org. You have to be a honorably discharged, enlisted, and be post 9/11 usually. So people who got in after 9/11. So they register with us. They have to load their DD-214. They have to load the resume. And me personally, the resume is written in crayon. I don't care because I'm going to fix it anyway. So they register with us. We make contact, and we do an intake with them. And we kind of go over the basic stuff like, verify some information and start and we have that initial conversation to get to know you, kind of like we do here. So get to know you. What do you want to do? I always ask, what do you want to do when you grow up? So that conversation about them being too old or too young, it's always like your future.
You're teaching them how to fish.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what we say. We're teaching them how to fish, and then the companies that we work with try to give them a fish. So that's actually kind of our philosophy: give them a fish and teach them to fish. And then we start from there. And then the first step is do the intake, and then we start working their resume. And we don't exactly do the resume for them because they have to learn how to tailor the resume themselves. There's a lot of tools out there to use. You got a lot of free tools. Even AI can help you find resumes, and that's where we start. And then we start, focusing them on which companies they want to work for, what jobs they want. And I think the biggest thing is that I tell them is, you're in the service. We think that because we're in the service and we have our duties and our extra duties, that you give us a book, we'll go figure out how to do the job, which is not really the case. So when I talk to them, I was like, have a conversation with yourself. Really talk to yourself, and look at the jobs you're looking for. Am I qualified for the job? Meaning that you've done something before, because the company's only going to hire you if you're qualified. Do I want to work for that company? And here's a kicker. Some of my family support it, i.e. relocation, travel, hazards. Sometimes if you've been in the service for a long time, you've been deployed, maybe your spouse doesn't want you to go offshore for 2 weeks at a time. So these are kind of things that we kind of have a conversation with and try to give on before they start actually searching for a job.
I love that, by the way. Will my family support it? Boy, that's a big one, because we've been talking about it. My wife and I have been talking about that. We spent 3 years in California because they were accepted to the California Institute of the Arts to get a degree in sound design.
Wow.
The intro that you heard that brought us in was her voice and her work.
Wow.
That's what she does. And it's really, it's a wonderful thing. But we had to have a conversation, and Claire sat me down and said, part of me is not going to feel good about the rest of my life if I don't do this. The moment she said it that way, I'm like, what do we have to do to make this work? Let's make this work. And I think in a lot of ways, what you're also encouraging is, like I said, to go back to those soft skills, for these people to remember that they don't just represent themselves. There's a network of people around them who they're making choices for, and that is so important. We're going to take a quick break here to go to the phones for a second, okay, which might be about other topics we've talked about this morning, just to kind of give you guys a heads up when we come back to our conversation with Patrick McManus. He is joining us this morning. He's an Aerospace and Defense Assistant Program Manager over at NextOp Vets. What he really does is he makes sure that the men and women who have served this country understand all that is available to them and all the possibilities for a purpose-driven life moving forward. And we'll talk about the VFW stuff in a second here as well, too, along with Maritime. Who do I got on the phone? Marshall, you're in the game. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I just wanted to say it's a pleasure to have a real rocket scientist on the show, as opposed to, you ain't gonna believe this, but I was gonna go to work for NASA, but I decided to drive a truck. I have one other comment to make on this new English thing here on the CDL. How much is it gonna cost me to prove that I can read? Because the DMV won't let you sneeze without paying a $50 fee. So now I got to pay another $50 in order to get an endorsement for something that it's pretty easy to see, because I used to have a hazmat endorsement. I dropped it because I don't need it anymore. But I mean, I obviously was able to read the test, take the test. I was able to read the hazmat rules and all that. And there's one other aspect. A lot of people can read. Not all of them can comprehend. I run across that on a daily basis. Hey, it's right there on the sign. Yeah, but I don't understand.
Yeah, believe me, I have up close and personal experience with it. There's a longer conversation to be had, Marshall, and those are both great questions. I think also that what they're trying to do is I think what's really going on here is they're trying to slow down the process at which people become CDL holders, and I don't think that's a bad thing, if you follow me. I think what they're trying to do is slow walk it. I think the idea is it'll be folded in with the actual test you have to take to simply get your CDL. I think that what they're suggesting here in the liner notes is that the CDL test is a rigorous examination of your English language skills as well too. I think that's what's going on. There's lots more to talk about. Let me get back to Patrick, but I knew you were waiting, wanted to get you dropped in. Final comment, by the way.
I just gave you my 12 cents worth. That's plenty there. You guys have a great day, and I'm enjoying the show as always.
Thank you, sir. By the way, both of those are legitimate questions about what kind of fees are going to be attached to that. I do think, though, that part of it is simply an attempt. I think what's really going on there is actually slowing down the process since the training, by the way, according to OIDA at least, is not slow enough. I think it's an attempt to once again begin to slow walk people into that industry. People need to be qualified. We're joined with Patrick McManus here. Thank you for the call, Marshall. Let's talk about some of the stuff that you're involved with in New Orleans on the ground, because it really does relate to networking, why that's so important. And a lot of people, I hate to say this, in the military, sometimes you have instant friends. I don't mean they're actually your lifetime friends, but you have to deal with people. The chance to become isolated can really happen quickly when you leave the military, that you can not even realize it, but you've isolated yourself. One of the ways that you kind of can break out of that is by getting involved with organizations and reaching out to people. Talk about what you do on the ground here with the VFW, with Post 8973 and stuff like that.
Well, for the last 5 years as an officer in a post, I just left as last election I left as I was a trustee. So last 3 years I was a trustee, and 2 years before that I was the junior vice commander, which basically I just take care of the property. And the trustees, what they do is they're kind of like a board member. They make sure everything's I's are dotted, T's are crossed, kind of thing. So I've been doing that for about 5 years. It's a great organization. We do a lot of stuff with veterans here in New Orleans. Even during IDA, we were a post. We actually opened back up, and we were serving food a few days after IDA came through because the post is uptown off of Lion Street. If everyone knows where Grits is at, it's across the street from Grits in the dog park. So it's to be qualified for the VFW, you have to be a member. You have to be in the service. And you have to serve overseas and have a campaign medal. So I originally joined in Jacksonville when I came back from Korea, and I joined my dad's post. And so when I moved back to New Orleans, I think it was 2012. I joined. I was looking around, and kind of looked around for a while and wasn't really involved in anything veteran wise until 2017, I believe. So that's when I started getting involved with the VFW Post.
How much did it change the way you were able to network? I mean, and I don't just mean like did it give you contacts, but how much in doing that would you recommend when people come out of the service that they join organizations like that as a way to kind of begin expanding their network opportunities?
Well, when I'm talking to my candidates about networking, I usually use a American Legion, VFW, some kind of veteran organization to be part of their network as long with that. So the Post here, anybody who's a veteran in New Orleans, there's an open house on Thursdays. They can stop by and they want to talk to other veterans and, have that brotherhood or sisterhood that they're always welcome. So I think it's important because I've met a lot of people who own companies that want to hire veterans. I've met a lot of veterans who need to find jobs. Networking is very important, especially in New Orleans where everybody knows pretty much everybody else.
It's crazy. It's nuts because, like, as Madison has discovered, she was working on a movie, and of course Bentley, Brad, immediately sent her an email with, like, talk to the following people. Here are some people you might want to be interested in kind of talking to. And that's kind of the thing, and it's finding out where those networks, those kind of locus exist. The other thing is, too, and I wanted to bounce this against you. Idle hands are the work of the devil is the famous kind of saying, that if you involve yourself, though, with organizations like the VFW and the American Legion and find a good nonprofit that does charitable work, a lot of the extra time that while you're looking for a job is spent being members of organizations that are actually amplifying your opportunities to maybe find a job. Of course, as you have suggested, you need to be there for the right reasons, but you'll find that if you're spending your time occupied rather than in your apartment kind of dwelling on what's not happening in your life, it opens up prospects. Talk about your charitable work, too, as well. You're actually a board member for Hands On New Orleans. Tell us about Hands On, and then tell us what you do.
Well, I just left the board. I just left the board. So hands-on organization here in New Orleans that do primarily one focus is they bring in companies and they kind of host them to do a lot of projects around the city. And during emergencies, they do more of emergency management and coordination with supplies and disaster recovery kind of things. So one of our post members, Josh, who actually has several degrees in disaster preparedness, emergency management. I nominated him to the board when I left. He's also a post member.
It's really kind of like I said, it's interesting too that once again we go back to the same thing. You go volunteer for a nonprofit, and it goes back to a lot of the stuff you were saying earlier too about being qualified for a job. It's if you want to help people, then join the one you want to join. But you may also say, I have a unique set of skills. Like your friend, the idea that I'm really good at disaster relief. So maybe I should focus on something that focuses on disaster relief. I'm really good with kids. So maybe I should, I'm really patient with children. I do not qualify for that. But, I'm saying I might want to join an autism organization that works with kids directly, giving them a chance to spend time on horses. It doesn't make any difference, but it goes back to the resume as well, too. So I was going to ask you that. When you get veterans in front of you, do you say, look, you might want to find some time to find a nonprofit or a charitable work organization that actually speaks to your skills? Because if you demonstrate them, somebody who works with you might go, hey, you know what, I could really use you at my company. Is that the kind of thinking as well?
Yeah, if it speaks to their qualifications to the company, definitely. If there's room on the resume, definitely. Sometimes on resumes there's a lot of extra stuff that goes on there. So one thing that veterans do is we always put our medals on our resume, and we always want to put down where we were. And I tell them, they're really cool. You have a lot of experience, but usually people don't know what those mean. So when it comes to volunteer organizations, if it speaks to the qualifications you have, then put it on there. If you have room on your resume, put it on there. But
I'm interrupting you because I have a question for you. Is there any way to kind of say on a resume, I am happy to talk about my service if you have questions? You see what I'm saying? Because that way you don't put it on there, list all that stuff that people have no meaning for. But if you are actually curious, I am happy to talk. Is there any way to kind of indicate that?
Well, so usually you don't want to go back more. In my experience, a resume is 1 page is optimal, no more than 2 pages. Right. And you don't want to go back to more than 10 years. So I retired over 10 years ago. So the only thing about my resume it says in my summary, Air Force veteran.
Right.
And then it just goes back to my experience. Now, if I was going into a job that I did in the Air Force, I would make sure I, minimize some stuff and then emphasize my qualifications from my time in service back then. But it's I think having a veteran on there, if you have a current clearance, definitely have that on there. If you just got out the service, you're gonna have all your stuff on there anyway. So I think it all depends on how long ago did you get out of the service when you separated. That if should be on your resume or not. But you really want to emphasize your qualifications on a resume.
Yeah, and like I said, it's also important, and please tell me if I'm wrong because I actually defer to you as an expert on this. Don't put anything on your resume you don't want to talk about.
Oh, definitely. Even in an interview.
Yeah.
There's certain, I don't know all the rules, but there's certain rules where employers can't ask you certain questions. So, but if you bring it up, then they can talk about it. Same thing on a resume. And also make sure if you have a LinkedIn account, make sure it matches your resume. Make sure there's no contradictions as well. Because employers will look at your resume, they will look at your social media, and because you might get hired based on your qualifications, but they want to know if you'll be a good team member as well.
Boy, that is really crucial too, guys. And I'm reminding everybody of this over and over again. I know people say, well, I have a right to my opinions. You do have a right to your opinions. And by the way, on social media, if it's a public opinion, your employer has a right to look at it and not tell you that's why they made the decision. It's not right sometimes. It's not fair. But If they don't tell you that was the reason, we're just going to go in another direction. You may have posted something that gets you out of a job. So just be very thoughtful about what you post. Nobody is, by the way, and your freedom of speech means the government can't do anything about it. It doesn't mean your employer can't from time to time. Let's get to some fun stuff because you and I both have a passion for Mardi Gras. As you can see, one of your fellow Tucks members actually created a Radio Nemo logo. We actually have also a Muses shoe created for Radio Nemo as well. You are a big fan of Mardi Gras, are you not?
I'm not as much as my wife, but yeah,
well, then you're a big fan. I hate to break the bad news to you.
I'm a fan of Mardi Gras. So I ride in the Krewe of Tucks. I'm riding since 2015. Part of the networking thing. Bo Higgins rides, and so does Brad riding Tucks, which I found out after I knew them.
Which, by the way, I want to say this again to our listeners. Do you understand how big Mardi Gras crews are that you could actually ride with somebody and not know that they ride with you? I mean, these are big parades, 27, 30, 35 floats, and each float is its own little city-state. About great networking opportunity. That's a crucial thing, too, is wherever you go, figure out what the community does to have the most fun and gravitate towards that and see if you can develop a passion for it. Right. Anybody that spends any time in Chicago knows that street fairs and block parties are a really big thing in the fall. You might actually want to get involved with that kind of stuff. You guys live on Napoleon, right?
Right. So
tell them what that means from a Mardi Gras perspective.
I live on the parade route. In fact, I can watch the parade from my front porch. One year, actually, I walked across the street to my float. My float was parked in front of my house, so I just walked across the street and got on my float. So that's how much of a fan we are. Is that's one of the requirements for a house we have is to live on the parade route or to live within a block of it. So it makes finding a house kind of hard, but it's fun. Did
you play any sports in high school?
No, sir. I was in junior ROTC.
Because we played West Jeff on a couple of occasions. That's why I asked. You would have missed Bo, and you might have encountered me. Bo was 2 years ahead of me at Jesuit. It's a small world. I'm telling you. He's right, by the way. This is a small city that New Orleans is. Patrick, of course, is an Aerospace and Defense Assistant Program Manager for NextOp. It is great to have him here. Tell us where we can find you. Tell us where the websites are and all the social media stuff.
So Facebook, it's NextOp Vets. Our website is nextopvets.org. We're on LinkedIn and I believe all the social medias.
Yeah, you guys. I mean, they're omnipresent, guys. I mean, that's it. I mean, you can find them at NextOp. Any final things before we have to shuffle off this radio coil?
You know what? So before I first started with NextOp, I was an employment coordinator. So we got a grant under Maritime Industrial Base, and then I talked to my wife first before taking the job. And so I moved in this position where I still kind of do the same stuff. But basically what it is the Maritime Industrial Base is they want to hire 25,000 people every year for the next 10 years. There is the Navy discovered there's a shortage of excuse me, I'm stuttering now.
That's okay. You're doing great.
So they look back and go, they need to definitely develop suppliers and a workforce. Basically, there's a big gap in trades, and pipe fitters, welders, CNC machinists, additive manufacturing, all these things that you need to build a ship, a submarine, airplane. These trades are not out there right now, so that they're actually developing those. There's a school in Virginia where you can go to school for free for 16 weeks. Housing's free, not only veterans, and they'll train you in 5 of those trades, and you'll come out with certification and walk into a $25 an hour job. But for about 24% of the class is observed for veterans, but that's being paid for through by grants and through the Navy through Blue Forge Alliance into the Maritime Industrial Base. And it's kind of like where we are. That's how we got involved in that.
Are you an early riser? You get up early in the mornings?
Yes, I have a 2.5-year-old.
Okay, so what we're going to do, Patrick, is we're going to get you back on next week at some point. I'll have Claire reach out, and we'll just have you come in, because what you just kind of brought up here, you guys are pretty clear on that. That is an entire conversation. We could spend a good 20 minutes talking about that. Well, can you make some time for us next week if Claire reaches out?
Well, next week I will be in Colorado at
when you get back to
fairs.
town. The moment you get back to town, you can make time though.
Yes, sir.
If you,
Definitely.
Absolutely. We got to take the break. We got to bring Lindsay in on here. But Patrick, it is such a pleasure to meet you. Should I join Tucks?
Yes.
Okay, I should join Tucks. That's it, Madison. Hit the music, please.